Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. Released June of 2019. Available on all modern platforms. Retailing for $39.99. Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night is a metroidvania, and it's also a crowdfunding success story. It is a spiritual successor to the Castlevania franchise, taking elements from Castlevania Symphony of the Night, as well as the two trilogies of Castlevania games from the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS. So you have a very large map to explore, with many secrets to find, many different pieces of equipment for you to find, with many weapon types that all attack differently. And you can take the abilities of the monsters you are fighting. Doing this in this game is not a soul. Here it is called a shard. And these shards can be upgraded, both by collecting multiples of the same shard, and through sacrificing particular items to power them up. And having the right shards and weapons for a situation will be key to your success. Now, story-wise, this is not a Castlevania game. There are no Belmonts, and Dracula is nowhere to be found, but you might encounter a vampire or two. Instead, this is a story about how alchemists are apparently terrible. They are the reason you can absorb shards to use enemy powers, but they're also the reason that all of these enemies are around anyway. And you're primarily here to confront the main alchemist who has gone off the deep end. But there's actually several ways to go about doing that, and several endings you can find. Alchemy is also key to a number of mechanics in this game. You can use alchemy to improve your shards, and use it to create items and pieces of equipment. You can also apparently cook using alchemy, which actually serves two functions within the game. First, every time you eat a new piece of food, you get a permanent stat bonus. Secondly, one of the 3 types of quests you have in this game is making an old woman food. You make her the dish she wants, she gives you an item. The other 2 types of quests you have are killing so many of a particular type of enemy, which is very straightforward, and the other involves bringing back a requested item to the quest giver. These are apparently items to remember particular people by. But since you can just make a new version of most of these items with alchemy, and complete the quests with that, I'm not really sure getting her these items is actually helping with her trauma. But all 3 types of quests are just to give you reasons to keep exploring the castle. So, you'll explore the castle, noticing areas you can't quite get to for whatever reason. You will then fight a boss and get a new ability. You can then access more of the castle. And that's well and good, as that is the standard Metroidvania formula. But there are times within the game where it is not exactly clear where you're meant to go. And it is very possible to accidentally sequence break at these points. This did happen to me in my first playthrough of the game. And while I did notice that the enemies seemed to be a pretty big jump over the last area I was in, I just assumed that was intentional. So, having found a new area, albeit a very difficult one, I simply started to grind until the area seemed more reasonable. Getting to the boss of this area, and seeing how powerful it was, I then went about grinding a few more levels, which allowed me to finish this boss, but it also made the areas that I'd accidentally skipped in this game a complete joke. And this is a problem that very much could have been avoided. Because if you go to the woman that sells items in this game, you have little conversations with her where she gives you hints of what to do next. But when I got to the point where this happened, the hints she gave me were not really doing much in the way of helping me. As it turns out, you need to get your picture taken, and then talk to the guy that runs the library, but I did not get that at all. So instead, I found some torches that allowed me to get up to a higher area I wasn't supposed to be at, apparently. And it's not that I want the game to just spell out exactly what to do, but it is possible that what the game was saying in its hints was maybe just a little too subtle. But is Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night worth your time and money? Well, yes. Yes, it is. And that might be surprising, given that you just heard me talk about the sequence breaking that I had issues with, but I do want to be clear that I enjoyed myself the entire time. This really does feel like the third game that would have followed in the footsteps of Aria of Sorrows and Dawn of Sorrows. But because this isn't actually a Castlevania game, we don't have to sit through another contrived explanation as to why someone thinks it's a great idea to bring back Dracula one more time. The game itself is 15 to 20 hours long, assuming you're not doing a completionist run, and since release there have been various modes of play added to the game, with the alternate characters you can play as giving you very different experiences. So yes, I do recommend Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, and I would even go so far as to say it is worth its $40 price tag. But it is worth noting that on all platforms it goes on sale fairly frequently, so while I absolutely think it's worth full price, it is possible to not have to pay it. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.